No.
Okay. All right, Vanessa, it is an
Hello.
honor to sit down with you. I'm so glad we have this opportunity, and especially during this kind of interesting and kind of a strange time.
Yes, indeed. We'll do it virtually this time, but
Yes, yeah. Well, we talked a couple weeks ago, and or actually, I think we first kind of chatted a little bit right when things got shut down back in March,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I know about you is that you are on it. You know, you're always kind of looking into the future and trying to kind of, make the right, do the right things to be prepared. And I've just really seen that on a lot of levels, you've been really kind of prepared for this kind of event where a lot of, gallery owners and artists may be caught a little bit flat-footed. So I'd love to get into that a little bit with you, but kind of first off, just a little bit of a brief introduction about what you do. And so I've known Vanessa for quite a few years now, and we've seen each other at a lot of different shows and events and festivals and things like that. Mm-hmm. And one thing that really impresses me about Vanessa is she is balancing so many different things. She's able to not only be a fantastic artist, but she runs a gallery and she's written a lot of articles for magazines. She organizes these shows, not only here in the US, but also in France and other parts of the world, and gets together some really fantastic shows of really top-notch representational artists. And I know I'm missing a couple things, but I know there's other things that you...
How do I do it is the question.
So I just want to kind of get into it a little bit of all the things you've got going on and kind of the exciting stuff that you are doing. And also just to hear a little bit about how you balance all of this, because not only that, you add on top of that, you're a mother as well. And so I know a lot of artists that have kids kind of have to deal with that balance. And I'd love to hear about the great things you're doing, but also how you kind of, fit that into everything else you've got going on.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people ask me that. It's not something new that I hear, because there are quite a few things we're doing, but you have to remember that they're all related. Being a fine artist and a gallery owner, obviously those go close together. I studied literature and I was working for Fine Art Connoisseur magazine, and now I'm a freelance writer writing articles, but mostly about art. So then I'm curating exhibitions with the works that I'm writing about and seeing. And so if you think about it, there's many things, but they're all related. So it's not like I'm suddenly writing about golf or something else. It's a theme that happens, and then the artwork happens with that theme, and the article happens with that theme. So in the end, it's all related. And time management is the way I do it. I have a schedule. I have this book here that is my Bible, which I write down everything that's going on, every show, every artist I see, and I carry it around with me because it's really the only way to do all of that. And then you add on to it being a mother and a wife, which includes, cooking dinners, organizing laundry, everything. So you really do have to be organized or something will slip. I said once to someone in an interview that it's like juggling glass balls because you can't let anything fall on either side. I want to do my business really well. I want to be a really good mom as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So juggling glass, and then making time. And, the biggest thing for me is finding time for my own work, which is obvious. I'm trying to do all this, and the gallery makes money, the writing makes money, my work makes money. But I always seem to wish I had more time for my own painting, That's the one thing I usually struggle with.
Is it? Can we walk through maybe a typical day of how you kind of structure?
Sure, or more like a week, because the days, I can't just jump on an easel and create a masterpiece, for example, for an American Impressionist Society show. I have to balance it. I have to plan ahead. So let's say that there's some sales that went on. They have to be in the QuickBooks accounting. So all of a sudden I've got an accounting hat on. Then that has to be shipped out. So I've got to ship out. and then I've got to package and go to UPS. And so those kind of things are all done the same day. Then I might do inventory that day and get a new work or have a look at the curation. So there's 2 or 3 days that I'll be doing more of the business side of it. And then let's say it's a, Monday, Tuesday. The galleries are closed usually at these times, Sunday, Monday, or Monday, Tuesday. And those days I'll focus on creating. So, as an artist, you have to get into the mode of creating and have some references or go outside or have something that, inspires you. So I have to cut my week in a couple days and do it that way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so, you kind of have a regimen. You're fairly regimented, I guess, in a way.
I have to be. If I want to do what I want to do as a mom, yes, I have to be scheduled. There's no question.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think that discipline is so good. And when I talk to people that are really kind of effective, even as artists, there's kind of this myth that artists are really irresponsible and just paint whenever they feel like it. And I find that that's not really true with a lot of artists that are effective with.
Agreed. I feel that they're doing something similar. They're planning and being thoughtful about it. And there's always the time too where you just grab a canvas and want to do something, of course. But
Sure. But in terms of like, if you want to get an exhibition to happen, there's a time thing and things need to happen. Images need to be delivered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
you have to plan as well. Yeah.
Now, so do you have any assistants to help you doing this, or is this you're able to kind of manage?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, when I see something in the future that's going to be bogged down, like let's say I create a show in New York, and I know that preparing that, creating the digital catalog, all the marketing beforehand takes a certain amount of time, and then as you get closer to the show, there's the actual shipping of the works and everything. I will hire freelance people to help me. And I can kind of, as I'm planning, foresee that. And so there are a number of freelance people that can help me do that. Either work the show or do the packaging. I do the graphics design myself, but I can store my son to do that.
Oh, that's great. So your son does some graphic design. I keep trying to get my kids doing things like that, but they're not into it yet. So that's fantastic.
Purposely trained.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's really interesting. So are you, in your kind of day-to-day thing, what happens, when you have kind of a monkey wrench thrown into your day? That can happen with kids, or somebody falls off the trampoline and breaks their leg or something like that, and that can throw off your schedule. How do you kind of deal with that and recalibrate? Because I know, I had an artist yesterday that was telling me how he had to race home and, saying, hey, this seems to happen so often. How do I, and just kind of trying to recalibrate, sometimes your day gets thrown off.
Yeah. Yeah, as with anyone, for example, let's say it's a painting day for me and something like that happens. Well, I'm not going to be able to get back on the easel because I'll be concerned for my child, or, concerned that the shipping didn't get there. And then I have to just, you really do have to be flexible. You can't be selfish. It's a very selfless thing to be able to do all of these things. So
really.
For just knowing that before it happens, like, okay, this is going on, let's deal with it and then go on to the next thing, But sometimes I have to understand that the painting will have to wait.
Yeah, right.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
We're lucky with what we do anyway.
That's to have that kind of flexibility, that temperament is an extra added superpower, I think. Sometimes
it's not always easy.
That's awesome. Now, so let's talk about the monkey wrench of all monkey wrenches, and that's the COVID-19, and it's changed so much, right? And I see you as one of those people that have adapted really well and really quickly to all of it. Can we talk a little bit about that? How it's affected your gallery, just day-to-day stuff, and how you've kind of handled all that.
Sure. We were talking before how we're lucky that the gallery was already set up to recognize that online sales, already starting in 2012, when we were 2 years into our space, that online sales were going to be a big part of our business. So we knew that already then, and about 60-65% of our sales do happen online through advertising, through social media, through word of mouth, through our digital catalogs that we put out. If you go to our homepage, vanessarothefineart.com, you will see 15 catalogs there, and they can shop on those catalogs, and they're always there online. And those we put out when we do every show. So our gallery was already set up for this. We were very lucky. And then there has been more online platforms also that have been popping up, and I wanted to share those with all of you so that a place that you have to sell your art is not just a brick and mortar store. Everything is online now, and there's ones that we've discovered, like artsy.net, sachiart.com, Artspur from France, ArtNet, Artfinder, and of course eBay and Etsy are still quite viable for sales. So we, knowing that, have some of our work listed on artsy.net, for example, and that is a whole nother platform for us for art sales. So we're not just sitting in our gallery, we are out to the world through these online platforms that now exist already for years.
Yeah, that's smart. And, that's, and not just, saying you're picking one, but maybe picking a group of them. Do you find that, as far as sales go, are most of them here in the United States, or do you find, like, being on the one you mentioned in France, that, Europeans are buying some of this work too? Or
yes, all of these have a different reach, and you have to just research which genre is correct for you. Artsy.net leans definitely towards the more modern and the Rauschenbergs and the New York kind of art scene, but we wanted to dip our toes into that one and see if it worked for us. I can't say that it's been that wonderful for us, but definitely we've reached new clients in London, a new client in Hong Kong, and a new client in Paris, and I would probably say it's from one of those things,
That's fantastic.
So it only takes one with our kind of business,
Yeah. Well, and I think that's so important to, just not think of your local market, that you really want to think globally, and it doesn't cost a whole lot more it just takes, the time and energy to go onto these sites, right? Or is
it is rent in a way, instead of showing with a gallery, let's say you're an artist who's showing by themselves, and you, instead of buying a gallery that's thousands of dollars a month, you rent space on these websites for a couple $100. So your overhead is quite low.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, it's very, very smart, because, even if you look at, even the US, we're dealing with a lot of, of course, some, challenges with the COVID-19. There are other countries like Taiwan or South Korea that aren't as affected by it,
No, they've come out of it already,
And so it's not like all countries are being affected to the same degree, and that will be true also with just economies, right? Certain economies will be doing better than others, and so.
Yeah, and it'll be tough for us for a while. I mean, given the stock market and everything, that we sell a luxury item, that's not going to be very difficult. But what we've lost mostly is the lower share of the market, which means new buyers of the art world that have maybe a medium income. The ones that have tons of income and are buying works for $20,000 up haven't lost that much comparatively. So they're still purchasing, but the market that we've lost is the kind of middle or lower class that we try to have collecting now and being able to get affordable, nice art with us. So we'll wait for that to reemerge,
So do you think it's for like some of, our students here at Sentient Academy or younger artists kind of just, getting going, do you have any kind of particular advice for them?
Absolutely. Well, obviously, besides, honing your craft and being the best you can be at your genre and what you're doing by practicing all the time and getting to be at a level where you feel you can sell and promote, keep in mind that an artist, a fine artist, is always multiple things. You are running your own business immediately when you sell your art. You become a freelancer, independent contractor, and most of the artists I know do either graphics and digital plus fine art, teaching plus fine art, gallery owning or working for a gallery plus fine art. So there's not that many, I know. The small percentage that can do it, the 10 to 20% of the top that just paint, is a smaller percentage, and they still run their business as a business. So you need to learn about being a business owner, you know?
Yeah, that's absolutely great advice. And yeah, some of the, the best painters I know, I mean, all of them teach.
Yes.
Do some teaching or something in addition to paint. So
and that's okay. It actually helps give you ideas and keeps you in the real world, and inspires you and keeps you going. So that's important also.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing, we kind of got into it just a little bit. Some of the things that you do to promote, your work and the work of your artists in the gallery. Do you have any other kind of little insights and things that I think that's great? You talked about the digital sides of things. Is there stuff that you're also doing? Because people still can come to the gallery, right, on a kind of limited basis, but how are you managing all that?
Area, which again is maybe 25% of our business is local sales, or maybe 35, let's say, percent is local sales. So, but what we're doing to capture the other sales is new videos. We started something in 2015 called Behind the Scenes with Vanessa Rothe Fine Art. Mm-hmm. And it launched because we wanted to have you look at the inside of our artists' lives. Our collectors want to know about the artists, see where they work. I mean, even here you can see where I'm working at home, and it's quite interesting to see the artist palette and what brushes they use. Even if you're not an artist, if you're a collector, everyone's kind of fascinated with the whole process, as are we as artists. So I started this video series called Behind the Scenes, and we have 3 or 4 done right now already that takes us inside the studio of different top artists. And they're pretty brief because they're just supposed to be a snippet, and then you can learn more about it. But video has been a big deal for us. We're also doing curator walkthroughs where I'll talk about a painting like this one on the floor behind me by Ray Roberts, and discuss what techniques he's using. And I try to explain it from a curatorial point of view, but also an artist's point of view. So both the curators, collectors, and artists can learn from things like that. So we're big on education. We want you to understand why the art is there and, what makes it amazing. Yeah,
that's great, because you're really trying to bridge the gap and make that connection, reaching out and making a connection with people.
And it's marketing. I mean, video nowadays, look at what we're doing right now. I mean, we are video marketing. So
yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that that's kind of the old ways of the typical gallery where you wait for people to come in and kind of show up, or those days are gone, right? And all these new tools and things like that.
Happen. I mean,
they still happen, but it's not quite the same.
They're not limited to that. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then,
well, I think that, go ahead. Yeah.
Sometimes we do get new artists in. I was going to say more on the art student who's looking to, get a gallery. There are still wonderful galleries out there, and I was just going to give a little advice on what you should do and how you should be prepared when you want to approach a gallery. Shall I talk about that?
That'd be fantastic.
Well, obviously, if you're in the representational world and realism, you're going to have to hone your craft, as I mentioned, and have really good drawing skills, because that's what this genre is looking for. Mm-hmm. Consistent drawing skills without errors, Mm-hmm. And then what's important right now is there's so many good artists. There's a lot of art schools out there, and there's a lot of really good realist artists coming out there. So what I look for and what stands apart is subject matter. So an interesting subject matter that's pleasing or beautiful figure in the landscape is very popular for us in the gallery right now. Not just something every day that you find as an artist to paint. You have to see what people are interested in hanging on their walls. And I would never tell an artist what to paint, but subject plays a huge role in choosing art for the gallery, and be consistent at it. We once had a wave painter come to the gallery, and he did waves in the ocean, and that's all he did, and they were excellent. He didn't really do still lifes, but the gallery would be interested in taking his work because he's excelling at that subject matter.
Yeah.
So it's just something to think about. The subject is a big deal. And, students should travel and read books and get interesting things in their mind.
Yeah. Do you find that it's better that an artist kind of sticks to a certain subject, or do you,
Not necessarily.
in terms of the gallery though, is that better, or is it more, what is it like in terms of like creating body of work that's important?
Yeah, so here's the answer to that is if you're going to do something, do it really well. If you're going to paint flowers, make sure you have, color harmony and you're really good at the flower painting, and that's kind of what you do. Obviously, the most accomplished artists can do any subject, but that is an upper echelon kind of level that you can get to. But what you're doing with your subject is make sure you show consistency in your subject and the way you paint it. That's what galleries will want to see, that they can count on you for that subject or for art.
Right. Yeah, because that you want to create kind of a when a new painting comes in, there's kind of a list of clients that are ready to buy, the thing you're known for, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And sometimes that first one sells. We had a Richie Carter piece of Paris come in of the rooftops, and he did 2 other small ones, and those people were waiting for that one because they know that that's what he does really well, and they wanted that paint too. So it really does help the gallery and the collectors,
Yeah, to have some sort of consistency. And so with artists, I'm sure you have a lot of artists come and ask you to be in the gallery, and as you say, there's a lot of artists out there, and trying to select the one. Are there other things other than just maybe the quality of their work and the consistency? I mean, just even working with somebody, some other things that you would say?
We only work with nice people and people that are humble. And honestly, I don't want to, waste their time or my time if they've got some kind of ego. Or it's very important to be very professional. We're selling art. We're not doing brain surgery. It's a beautiful thing that we're able to be a part of, and it needs to be a nice process for everyone.
Is there any sort of like, I don't want to single any artist out, but like something that maybe happens that where you're like, this is annoying, or this, sometimes that's helpful.
Yeah, I can't think of any particular.
What's that? Yeah, some particular maybe.
I can't think of any
instance or
case, but yeah, I know that would be helpful. Let me think for a moment.
That's okay.
Just too snobby about their skills, probably, and already haven't been selling enough to have that kind of attitude. And even when you get famous and you get really well known, it's so much better if you're not egotistical and you're kind and you're humble. I mean, you come off better. I can tell you that 90% of the collectors want to buy your work more if they know that you're a nice person. Yeah.
Well, I know, for example, I did an interview, and there's an artist that really, high level artist, and they're working on this, giant project, not only him, but other artists, and it went into different phases and things like that. And one particular artist that was really tough to work with, basically they're like, they know he's an excellent artist, but they're like, I just can't, I can't work with you anymore. And, sometimes that it has nothing to do with the actual work as much as just trying to work with somebody, right?
Yeah, but that's in any industry and anything. You've got the office politics, basically. My husband or my friends tell me about their stories. I mean, it's all the same,
That's true. Well, do you see, I've heard gallery owners talk about their gallery of artists as kind of a family. Do you find that you kind of get artists also that kind of get along together?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, not on purpose, but like I said, and generally one of the things we're looking for is someone who's easy to work with, is amenable to changes, is amenable to giving the collector 5% more because they're buying multiple works, and, and understanding that if the client found you through the gallery, that you might have to give the gallery a small cut because they've been doing all the art, the advertising and marketing to get your name out there. So people that are appreciative of that is super important.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of like a marriage, right? When you are
yeah. And I encourage group emails to everybody in the gallery. you know, especially when COVID hit and this is going on. And, you know, I wrote, we're in this together, and we really are, because one person marketing something helps the other artists too. And I mean, I'm a big advocate to help everyone. So let's say we have a show for Realism Without Borders and we create this 100-page catalog. Every artist in the catalog should be sharing that catalog on their marketing. And it's only going to do good for all of us together. You know, it's kind of like strong together.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's, I think that's right. Yeah. And that creates that, yeah, you know, if everybody recognizes they're kind of a piece, a kind of a team player, right? I think that just helps the gallery.
Yeah, and it does work. It really works. I mean, think about it in life. Think about a sports team. You know, if everyone's in the groove together and supporting each other, and, you know, whether it's volleyball or football, or you're a team, you work together and you don't try to get your ego involved. I mean, it's the same with sports. If that happens, everything falls apart.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, in a gallery too, one of the challenges that can kind of happen, and I apologize for throwing this question on you, but you know, there's always somebody that sells the most, right? And then there's kind of a little bit of a hierarchy. It just happens.
Yeah, it naturally happens based on sales, or, you know, the gallery is a business. So if someone's selling more than someone else, we need to have their work available, because that's paying the rent for the gallery. It's nothing about the artist. And I do pay attention to that because I am an artist myself. I want everyone to succeed. So if someone who's doing really well is in the front window, he doesn't need to be in the front window. He's doing great. So I'll put someone else in the front window who's going to have a chance. And if someone hasn't sold 1 month, I'll try to make sure their work is outside on social media. And I really do try, you know.
Oh, that's great. Now, if you have somebody that's not selling well in the gallery, how, you know, that can be a kind of delicate situation. What do you think are some of the kind of the best things to do with when you have a situation like that?
Well, last year I had to let 2 artists go, and they were friends of mine. So that was very hard, you know, but it's a business. If they're not selling, we have a tiny wall space. We're doing a lot of marketing and advertising. It doesn't behoove them to stay at the gallery either, because they can go somewhere else and be selling more. And I was happy to hear that both of them went to other galleries and they're doing fine, you know? Yeah.
Well, and I think that's, you know, for young artists, it might feel like the end of the world if they don't sell at a gallery, but genre. Right genre. Or I've heard of even an artist that couldn't sell a single thing, but then he almost decided to quit and then walked across the street to a different gallery. This is in Scottsdale. And, you know, through all the 90s, I mean, he sold $1 million at least worth of art. So going from almost quitting to, you know, selling like crazy.
Also, you can start out in Yes, that's great. You can also start out in one genre and switch to another one. So, for example, I started out plein air painting because a woman taught me how to plein air paint with oils after I had done watercolors, and so I got into that field. But when I went to Laguna College of Art and Design, I found that figure painting, like this piece I did back here of this John Singer Sargent, was more kind of what I wanted to do. So. And those were selling more and doing better. And so you can find yourself, and it takes time sometimes. Try different genres. If they interest you, you should definitely try them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially, you know, when you're young, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself too fast, too quickly into something, right?
Yeah, and I also wanted to say to young students that you should reach out to your heroes. You know, if you're interested in Jeremy Lipking, or if you're interested in Vincent Seuss, call them, email them, try to write them on social media. We are amenable to talking, and they would love to hear that that they've inspired you. So you could ask them anything, and I know 90% of my friends that are artists would love to talk to you and inspire you. And I think students don't know they can do that, and they really can.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think people feel like they might somebody like that would be bothered by being contacted in that way, right?
And they won't write you back if they don't have time, because they are quite busy. But there's nothing wrong with trying and asking them, say, how do you do this? Or what's the color shadow? Or, obviously you can take their workshops and get to know them that way. That's another great idea to do. But, you can reach out to your heroes and learn about their genre and, you know, take something from one and do some abstract from another and see what works for you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wanted to ask too, you know, along those lines, you know, when we're looking for, when we're kind of or trying to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, with schools, you went to LCAD, you know, I went to the Academy of Art University, and those schools are a little pricey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that, you know, when you look at an artist, does it matter if they go to kind of one of these pricey art schools, or what are you looking for?
I'd see that a lot of students can succeed just by doing workshops, you know. It depends on how you learn, I would say. If you're disciplined and you can do a workshop and study and look online and do Sentient Academy things, you can absolutely get the education that you can in one of those schools. If you want more of a college experience, or you can learn only by being there, you have to think about how you learn best. But both can work very well.
Yeah, and so you've probably seen kind of self-taught artists as well as ones that have gone through the university system or atelier system, or so you're just looking at their work. You're not necessarily looking at their degree.
No, I don't until the very end, and it really doesn't even matter if they've gotten to point B. You know, it's not like they needed to graduate from Harvard. They have done the work. They've got a consistent level of painting, and their colors and values are correct, and those things are hard to master. You know, it took me 10 years. So if they've done the work, you can see it right away. I can tell in 2 minutes
if they've got those things working or not. Yeah. No, I think that's important, you know, that a lot of people wonder, how do they know if they're ready or not? I mean, what should, that's one thing I get asked a bit, and maybe you do too. You know, am I ready?
I would say you need, you know, 7 to 8, maybe 10 pieces that are all strong, that are all the same, whether it be realism or abstraction plus realism or impressionism, all consistently painted in the same style. The subjects can vary. You could have 3 garden scenes with a woman walking in it and 2 still lifes, you know, or they can be all waves, but they have to be consistent. And the application of paint and drawing has to be consistent as well. And then you're ready. It's a portfolio, you know, just like getting into anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's where, you know, when you find those mentors or those people that can kind of tell you, and
that's why I'm saying, call the artist, call me, I'll take your call. I mean, I write back to everybody I can to help them. It's not easy. It's not easy to figure out the art world, but that's what we're here for.
That's awesome. Well, you're definitely very, very generous, you know, with your time and influence. And I think that really has been, you know, one of the reasons of the success of the gallery and you getting out there and your message, you know, because it does take a lot of work every time you do kind of something like that and help people out. And it does take some time, right?
Yeah. But listen, you and I both did it. You know, you went from art school to trying to battle the art world and find your niche and find your friends. And, you know, advertising is important too, to get your name out there. Hopefully the gallery will do it for you. But it's not easy. So it's okay to ask for help, you know, just like any job.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it's something, you know, artists may feel like they got to do it all themselves, but, you know, you look at the movements.
Right. It's been figured out for you. Take the information, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and a lot of these artists do it in groups, right? The Impressionists did it as a group. Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, you know, they were a group of artists, and finding that kind of group of people, right?
Yeah. In fact, we're doing the Americans in Paris exhibitions and events that we started in 2017, based on the fact that the people of the writers and the French artists, how they were together working as a group and inspired each other in this new genre. We took 12 painters to France, to Paris, and studied the old masters. We studied group composition from the old paintings like the Rubens and the Louvre and the Musée d'Orsay. And we learned from them together, and we exchanged ideas. And that's really important if you can get a community together, a group of artists, friends, or a gallery of friends, and exchange ideas, you know. It's important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and sometimes if you live out in the sticks or somewhere, you can still interact online, right? There are different groups and things where you can do that as well. Do you find there are some groups in particular that you'd recommend or that are very useful, like on Facebook?
Yeah, on Facebook, there's different things. Again, it depends on your genre. You don't want to try to get into a group where your art just doesn't match theirs, because there's this acceptance level, you know? So there's ocean scene painting ones, there's American Impression Society, there's plein air painters groups, and then there's academic groups too that all do this kind of work behind us. So you want to make sure that you fit. The same with the gallery. You want to make sure you've researched the gallery, research the group, and see that your stuff fits or suits, you know? And if it's something that you'd like to paint like, that's okay too. If you're aiming to paint like them and you're not quite there yet, that's also, of course, okay. But make sure you fit with the group and your style is correct, you know?
Yeah, that's. I think a lot of research of the market. I've heard that a bit from some, different galleries where you do want to make sure and do some research. Do you have people come and, try and put an off-brand thing to you or something that's...
I mean, I get 5 emails a day, but this morning I got one that was very abstract, colorful, completely not what we carry at all. They didn't even look. They just probably saw our name and, sent something out, which is a waste of your time and their time. Make sure that your work fits with the gallery you're looking at or the group of artists,
Yeah. Now, what you were saying that pricing is a little bit, or things are shifting just a little bit because of the, what we're dealing with COVID-19. Is there any kind of advice as far as pricing that a young artist should be thinking about? I mean,
well, in general, even without taking COVID into consideration, I would keep your pricing humble, because what you want to do is sell your work. First and foremost, I don't recommend going high on your prices until you've been established as an artist for like 5 years. So you want to sell your paintings, so you can keep painting. And then when you've built your name and you've built your kind of repertoire and your shows, and then you can slowly raise prices. And then speaking to right now, yes, even the famous artists that we carry, everyone's understanding that a percentage off is acceptable right now. Or if they paint a new piece, it's going to come in just a couple $100 lower, because they don't want to lose that middle share of the market. Like I said, the higher luxury market is still there for the very top, but the middle and the lower class entrance collectors, they need to see something they can afford still.
Yeah. Could you break that down? I mean, what I've heard or my understanding, I guess you could say, is there's kind of certain price points, right? There's the 500 and below, right, for really cheap stuff, and then there's the it goes up to 5,000 is kind of between 1,000 and 5,000 is kind of a bracket that you think about, and then 5,000 to 10,000, and then above 10,000 is kind of a different, another market. And each one kind of is a little bit of a subset of a market. Do you think in those kinds of terms at all, or no?
Yes, and I would say in general, my gallery carries 5,000 and under. So we do not carry, very large, very expensive works, because that's just not what my market does. However, we did sell a $28,000 Michelle Dunaway painting of Richard Schmidt that was stunning, absolutely beautiful. And that was the highest one that we had sold, and it was just a couple months ago in February, right before COVID hit. And so that was kind of a rare thing for us, but the piece itself was worth so much, because it was a painting of Richard Schmidt, a famous artist, done by one of the artists who studied with him. The whole thing had a story. But in general, I'd say that we carry things that sell between 500 and 5,000, and that is our niche, and we do really well there. Roberts has some larger pieces that sell for around 10, 15,000. Those also do well. One of them sold to the Hilbert Museum from us, and now he's part of that in Orange County. The galleries will also have their price range. So when you're looking at a gallery, make sure that your work could be priced in that price range. And if you're a beginning artist, you're going to want to try a gallery like me to start. You could then move up to a secondary gallery. There's also nothing wrong with trying for those galleries first. If they like your work and they feel they can sell it for a certain amount, that's fine as well.
Yeah.
And then we don't have a lot of things for under 500, because the quality of art that we carry, Although we sell studies and beautiful things for $250, $300 for sure.
Okay, sure, yeah. Well, that's important to know, to understand that each gallery has a little bit different a subset of the market, and it's
within the realism world,
exactly, yeah, and that a gallery, it's not good business to try and span everything, right?
Well, I mean, you can, but again, you want to, just like anything, be known, just like I'm telling you to be known for your genre and your subject and what you're capable of. My gallery has to function the same way.
Yes.
We're known for representational work, gamut between realism and impressionism, leaning a little bit towards some abstraction. And that makes people know they can go shop with us. If you want a colored shirt and it's good quality cotton, you go to the Gap.
Yes.
If you want a very good painting for a very good price within a certain range, you come here.
Yes.
So yeah, we, just like you, will have to establish that,
Yes, absolutely. I think that's great advice, and important for students getting into a gallery to do that research and understand that there's these galleries that are geared in a certain direction, and to make sure they do that research, right? To know.
Keep in mind that, the Rauschenbergs and the very expensive works that sell for $50,000 to $100,000 in New York are usually modern. There's a cap at realism right now, unless you're the top painters for realism in America. They usually do sell it for 25 and less. And just be aware of the market. There's a really good book called The Value of Art by Michael Finlay that I suggest everyone reads, gallery owners, students. So have a look at that book and get an idea of the art world.
That book's new to me, so appreciate the recommendation. That's fantastic.
I'm going to see if I can grab it off the shelf back here.
Okay, yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I think as much as you can read about it, because sometimes the art world can be a little bit obtuse. It can be a little bit veiled, and so it's really nice to have any sort of insider kind of information. So art, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Again, to finish up, we're talking about knowing the business of art. As a fine artist, yes, you're this creative person, but you also have to have those days where you're working as a business person. So read this book and read things like this, business know-how basics, how to market it, how to do things. I mean, that's your own business as an artist. That's what you have to do, so.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot in the business side of things that you really need to understand, and even doing taxes and the financial back end type stuff.
And we can have an interview for that by itself, maybe sometime in the future. I'd be happy to help.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. We've definitely believe that side of it is equally as important as really working on your craft as well. Well, one thing I want to do, just kind of finish up, is maybe set aside some of the business side stuff, and then just talk for a little bit about just kind of your love of art, and just what it is you find about a career in the arts that drew you into this world, and maybe a little bit of a backstory, and just how did Vanessa Rothe become? How did you become this person that everybody knows and loves?
Well, I grew up in Laguna Beach, which is an artist community. My dad was a clothing designer to famous people. I came home one day and Rolling Stones was in my living room playing guitar. So Ron Wood was, he drew a lot, and he had some drawings that he did of John Belushi that my dad bought. And Laguna Beach is an artist community. So I was kind of surrounded by fabrics, materials, colors at a young age. We were buying Sennelier water-based paints when I was young, and now I paint with them in oils. And so I was already around that. But my brain is not just creative. I have the business side. I went to school and studied business marketing at University of San Diego. So I think the gallery, for me, combines the two, and that's why I love my job so much. I also studied writing and have a French literature degree. So the writing gets involved when I do press releases, or I write the catalogs, or the history of the art history. I give lectures. So my love for this business is because I get to do all the things I love. Yeah. Graphic design, business marketing. I get to paint with color, and and then I also get to write. So it's a combination of all the things I love. And I mean, who wouldn't like to do what they love for work?
Yeah, I think, and you make a really good point here. And this is something that I talk to artists about, that doing not just your craft or your painting or sculpture or whatever it is you do, but also the other little things you do, whether it's teaching, that is part of the art. There's an art to all of that, right? There's an art to graphic design. There's an art to marketing. There's an art to, um, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the business side of things. And so it's not something that, I guess it's the reason why is maybe some artists might feel like it's a failure to not be able to just paint, right? They have to do other things. But
I mean, I couldn't just, I have to fill my brain with the other side too.
yeah, well, I think I would be super bored personally if that's all I did, if I just painted. I think it's a much more rich creative life to have these other things in addition to the craft of painting. And so I guess my attitude, and I think that's what I'm hearing from you as well, is that, you love writing, you love running the gallery and all these different things, the lectures and all that stuff. And it's not taking away from your painting time. It's actually adding and making it a richer, more kind of dynamic life.
Yes, and that's why we have our new tag phrase on our website called The Fine Art of Life.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, when you were first starting to paint, do you have kind of like or draw, was there kind of an initial story which kind of got you the spark, or can we talk about that?
I started painting on silk, actually, because we were making clothes for the music industry, hand-painted silk things for Jimmy Buffett and all those guys. And I started painting on that when I was 8 or something. And then I won the Festival of Arts scholarship and the senior art contest at Laguna Beach High School. And so I just, like I said, growing up with those paints and the watercolor kind of feel, I started doing watercolors after that. And then I got hurt when I was about 30 and I started doing oils. We lived in Switzerland for 6 years, my husband and I. So I had been to all the art museums and I got so many ideas and so much information in Europe that I came home and I took my technical skills, which weren't quite there yet, with all my ideas, and I just worked on the technical skills for years so that I could create what I had in my mind, But I've always been around art materials that just inspire me to create.
Yeah, that's really neat about just kind of the early experience with your dad, and also just the other creative people that would come, right, to experience all of that. And
yeah, they were already, musicians have a lot of creativity too. So
that's really cool. Now, why did you choose? I mean, you paint in oils primarily, correct? So what made you go into oils versus maybe or continuous silk painting, or is there kind of a journey with the different types of mediums that you utilized?
Yeah, I mean, the silk painting is water-based pigments that led to watercolors. In high school, everyone was doing watercolors because it's accessible and cheaper. Then like I said, I got an injury that I could only stand. I couldn't sit, and I could only lay down or stand. So I started painting in oils because that was the next step to try. And a woman in town, Maria Bertrand, had a summer house in Provence, and we went there and painted together like Van Gogh out in the fields, very poetic.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this is it. These are buttery, and the color and the thickness you can get. And so it was an immediate love of the oil paints,
Yeah, well, that's a neat experience when you're in France and you speak French, right?
Oui, tout à fait.
And so, I mean, just immersed in all of it, it's really hard not to just be seduced and fall in love with.
Yeah, my family heritage, and all the Impressionist paintings, because, I grew up, my grandfather was French, and so he'd always talk about Paris and the turn of the century and the Impressionists and, even clothing designers. So Francois, my grandfather, was a big influence for love of the Impressionists and painting. So So there I've got my dad and that creative side, and then my grandfather with the French and the Impressionist side. It just kind of made sense that that's what I started doing, you know.
Yeah,
I guess
really
I'm
cool.
a designer, but
It's fun to talk about that because that's, you know, and even all these years later, you're now doing these exhibitions, you know, Americans in Paris, and just your connection with that as it's grown over the years. It's neat
yeah.
to see the kind of early seed that was planted there, and you know where it's gone, you know, in your life to kind of take it in that direction.
We have a workshop that was supposed to be this May that was postponed, actually, the Americans in Paris workshop. And Workshops in France is hosting it for us. And we still have some places open, and it's Michelle Dunaway, Olga Cremon, David Gray, myself, and Casey Childs are all going to be teaching together at a chateau. We've moved it to the fall, and if it's safe, we're going to go. And you can find info on Workshops in France. But that's accumulation of all my art history. I'll be giving lectures at night. We'll be doing what the Impressionists did together in Provence. So it's very exciting for me.
That's really fun. Well, I went to, my longest stay in France was last year, and it was really neat to just go out into the countryside. What a beautiful place to be able to, I mean, it's really hard not to be inspired to want to paint areas like
Everything's
that. Yeah, amazing. So yeah, we're hoping that the world becomes a safer place in the fall. We'll cross our fingers. We'll see what happens. So any other concluding thoughts that you have on, you know, just, we have a couple minutes left here.
Yeah, for the artists, you mean, for the young artists and the students, and
well, and you know, maybe I want to maybe pick your brain just, or get an idea of kind of your vision of the future, or you know, where you see representational art going, or kind of what you're excited about as kind of you look out on the horizon and say, you know, hey, this is something to be really kind of excited about. You know, we get a lot of bad news right now, and do you have some positive news for us, or you know, just a way you look at the future?
Yeah, I mean, there was an article I wrote in Fine Art Connoisseur magazine that kind of talks about that, about realism today changing and being more open to abstraction. I think it was, let me think what issue, it's the June issue of Fine Art Connoisseur 2018. And so that article talks about realism and abstraction, and I chose like 12 artists that are doing it today. And that was never done before, you know, even in the mid-century times, it was either paint abstract or paint realist. And I think now, which is so exciting for anyone in our genre or realm, is that they can combine these two skills. Casey Beau is doing it, Olga Cremon is doing it. We have so much freedom right now, and it's accepted. It was never accepted before when you cross those genres over. These are some of the artists that are doing it, you know, Danny McCaw and Mia Bergeron. And so that's a very exciting time we're sitting in right now, being able to keep realistic pieces like this, or do something completely abstract in the background and just keep an eyeball that's real.
Yes.
So
yeah.
That's pretty freeing for us artists, and pretty amazing that it's accepted and they're selling, and I'm going to keep promoting that with my artists. So
that's really cool. Well, that's that's something that's, I think, is exciting. I know that you know, to some degree, some artists in the avant-garde kind of have certain feelings about representational art, but if you see, you know, from my perspective, and obviously from what you've written, and you know, it's an exciting and a very diverse and evolving field. It's something that will continue to evolve and kind of go into new and interesting areas. And that balance, that knife's edge between realism and abstraction, is really quite a interesting and exciting kind of field.
Exciting, yeah. It's exciting that it's being accepted. These are like War of the Worlds now getting along. So you talk about family, and you talk about the time where we're all supposed to be together. Well, this is it, you know, this is like band together, accept the different work, you know.
Yes,
it's time.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for meeting with us. This has been very informative, and very appreciate also the kind of the information you've been willing to share. And it just shows kind of your generosity and, the things that have made you successful. I think, it's a good example of kind of how to live your life in the art field. To, when you're generous like that, I think it always comes back to you, tenfold. That's something I found, and it seems like that, just the way you live your life, that's something that happens. That's a way that you like to run things, and I think that adds a lot to the success that you've had. It's just been fun to see. As you are, in kind of the digital, or just with the different videos and things like that. I think it'd be fun to, after maybe in a year from now, if we have a chance to talk again, just kind of go over maybe some of the things and what has changed. I think it'd be really fun to just kind of see what has happened with all of this, and just maybe readdress some of these issues and see what's changed and what's gone back to normal. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us, and we'll look forward to the next chance we get together. We don't have to be a social distancing. So
yeah, everybody stay well, and be grateful that we get to be in the art world. We're very lucky, all of us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Vanessa. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.